You're listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, featuring senior retail executives and experts in the global convenience and mobility industry. Welcome to the Future of Convenience. I'm Carolyn Schnare, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Dan Munford. Hey, Dan.
Hi, Carolyn. Nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
Well, Carolyn, as we do, I was talking to one of our good friends in the industry, Maxwell CEO Brian Donaldson. I think you know Brian very well.
Great guy.
And he said something which I felt was very powerful. And let me quote him. He said, "For operators like us, food service is no longer one category amongst many. It is the business." And I think that really sums up what we're going to be talking about today with Harry. Are you looking for a loyalty platform that drives real results? Liquid Barcodes is the leading loyalty and subscription platform for convenience retailers worldwide. Great convenience operators trust Liquid Barcodes to keep their customers coming back. Liquid Barcodes delivers the complete loyalty solution, making it easy to operate targeted and gamified loyalty programs with a fantastic user experience. Learn more at liquidbarcodes.com.
Well, we're going into our 2026 Best Foodvenience in the World competition, which we'll talk a little bit more about at the end. But before we do that, we're joined by an expert in food service, and I usually used to having him here next to me hosting a podcast, but today I get to turn the tables on him and put him in the hot seat. So we are joined by Harry Milloff, who is the CEO of the Moseley Group and an expert consultant in food operations, QSR, and convenience. Harry, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Carolyn. Very excited for this.
So, Harry, let's just take a moment, as you're in the hot seat, to ask you about your typical week at the Moseley Group. What does that look like? What do you enjoy most about that?
Well, it's funny, Dan. Typical week is an interesting phrase, and I don't think there is necessarily a typical week at the Moseley Group, which makes it very fun. And I'll just kind of unpack that a little bit. I mean, Dan, as you know, I'm on the road a lot, and sometimes we are doing deep dives that are really, hyper focused on one specific client. We might be in a test kitchen developing new menu items or operating standards, or we might be touring locations and doing deep dives in terms of how their operations are performing today, interviewing key stakeholders as a part of an initiative. So there might be a really hyper focused week that's really, just on one specific initiative, but then other times are spread, across a lot of really exciting projects on an hourly, daily, weekly basis, wearing lots of different hats. And so just to put in perspective, we have a client roster of over 300 different global brands. We'll be taking on anywhere from 7 to 10 different projects at any given time. We're working with companies like Yum Brands, the largest restaurant group in the world, Inspire Brands, the largest restaurant group in America, second largest in the world, all the way to emerging entrepreneurs that have an idea, to gentlemen that are thinking around bringing a new concept to market in New York City, have hopes and dreams of growing to 50, 100 locations, and have a brilliant idea of bringing different culture of flavors together into a very highly accessible format. And they'll come to us and we'll work on that, soup to nuts, developing from scratch concept. And concurrently to all this restaurant work, we are highly active in the convenience space, whether that's optimizing store formats, developing new food service platforms. Value engineering has been a really common area of focus these days, looking at ways to reduce CapEx while improving guest experiences. And so, this is a fire hose that I just kind of unleashed on you. And so it just, if you talk about a typical week, imagine, this all moving forward. And, I have a small but brilliant team of experts that every day is a little bit different. And that, I think that's what makes it most exciting.
Well, I think you describing your week as a fire hose, Harry, is probably quite appropriate in terms of the number of things that you manage to juggle. But obviously, business is good and you're in demand, and variety is the spice of life, isn't it? In our work, and we have a lot of variety here too, don't we, Carolyn? The things that we do. Let's just go back to Brian Donaldson. I mean, he's an industry leader. Everybody listens to what people like Brian have to say, and his statement, which I quoted earlier, is quite a powerful one. What's behind that kind of statement from people like Brian, Harry?
Well, it's really interesting, and you look at the growth categories within convenience, and of course it differs by global market, but we are seeing a lot of growth in areas like refrigerated packaged beverage, and a lot of innovation in those products. We're seeing growth in new innovations in the tobacco industry of non-smokables, and seeing a lot of increase of sales there. But when you kind of start unpacking that attention, and what is the difference between a packaged beverage that a customer might buy at one brand versus another? What's the difference between the pack of Marlboros from one store or another? It's really, these are growth categories, but they're also highly commoditized, and so how to really stand out from the pack, and how to really create this level of frequency and loyalty and drive. So many convenience operators have found that in food service, which arguably is one of the highest growth categories. And when a convenience operator gets that right and finds something that really connects with their customers, it becomes the business, and everything else prospers, because you're getting more customer traffic and frequent traffic, and this kind of relationship that's built with food is something that's far deeper typically than a relationship that's built with more retail goods. And so you're able to then sell more across the entire business. So I think that what Brian's really talking about here is, by leaning into food and by accelerating food development and food innovation, he's able to really create the anchor of his business moving forward.
I think that's very, very well put. You made me laugh the other day when we were talking about restaurant shows, and you were saying there's certain retailers that you always see at restaurant shows now. Um, Not everybody, but certain retailers. I don't know if you want to mention that example.
Yeah, I mean, I am always at different industry events, both on the restaurant side as well as the convenience side, and see my network. My restaurant folks are in the restaurant shows, and my convenience folk are at the convenience shows. But there are a couple select individuals within the industry that I will see from the convenience industry at the restaurant shows, and they're learning from the top QSR professionals, and they're sitting in on the sessions, and they're looking at the vendors and the suppliers that are supplying QSRs today, and employing that within their businesses. And I won't mention names on this, but the folks that I do see at these restaurant shows are ones that are delivering some of the highest food service sales within quartiles across the industry, and very much in stride with those types of food service sales that you might see at like a Chick-fil-A, for example. It's amazing just the level of knowledge share that is occurring in some respects, and what operators are making use of.
I mean, it's not a flash of genius on my part to say this, but surely, I mean, if we want to be restaurants and it's the key category, we should be all going to those restaurant shows, shouldn't we?
There's a lot to learn, and yeah, I mean, something that I think about sometimes, and is if you want to sell a lot of food and you want to really grow food sales, where do you look to learn? You'd want to look to those that are selling a lot of food and growing their food sales, and who better than QSRs? And so I think that diving into some of those types of methodologies, the science that QSRs employ on a regular basis, is something that can be quite impactful within the convenience industry.
Yeah, mate, very, very well put. Let's quote another industry legend, Frank Gleason. You may fuel your car once a week, but you fuel your body 3 times a day. I can't quite say it with the Irish charm that Frank always manages, but he's right. He's right, isn't he? And Moseley Group do a lot of market research, a lot of consumer intercepts. You really find out what customers want, which is obviously critical, for your food service, Foodvenience strategy. Let's talk a bit about consumer needs in Foodvenience, the different day parts and meal occasions, Harry, and let's try and unpack that a bit.
Yeah, well, Frank's a good friend of mine, and I love that quote. Really just speaks to the importance of food service today, And as you're right. We do interview customers very often. We are doing hundreds and hundreds of intercepts across our projects where it's one-on-one interviews. We're really starting to ask customers, what their feelings are about different programs, what their emotional connection with the brand is, how we can start to build bridges from existing customers into a new type of platform or new type of offering. And when we talk about day parts, it's interesting because there's so much blending that's occurring, especially in convenience these days, where 3 times a day is, a kind of is what some folks say, but I would argue that it can be quite more. And 5, 6, 7 times a day, where snacking is really playing a big role. Looking at folks that might be working night shifts and coming in the morning hours and wanting to have a more of a lunch or dinner occasion, that kind of flexibility, or vice versa, breakfast occurring in the afternoon or evening hours, late night after a time in the bar, having some level of breakfast sandwich, things like that. And so I think that flexibility, ensuring that you're really accommodating for different customer segments, is quite important when thinking about day part strategies, while really ensuring simplicity. I think that it's a tough nut to crack, but really thinking through how to create synergies of ingredients, synergies of products that cross utilized for different day parts.
So that actually, you said there's different things of people coming in for something specific, and I mean, you can find a burger at a QSR at a lot of different places. You can find hot dogs on roller grills at a lot of different convenience stores. But to really stand out in food service, I've heard you say over and over again, you've got to be unique, whatever the genre, channel that you're in. But how do you become unique? How do you become like with the capital THE, famous for something?
Yeah, I mean, I think when unique is interesting, because I think that it's what might be a better word is really is known for, and what is your hero product, what is your hero category. And I think that there are a lot of players out there doing burgers on the QSR side. There's a lot of convenience operators that are doing pizza, but how many are doing burgers or pizza really, really well and really consistently, and ensuring that your order is accurate every time? That delta point right there is where you can start to make a customer that might come once a month to try your food to a customer that's coming multiple times a week. If you're creating that experience and the trust that they're going to get something that's going to feel good, it's going to taste good, they're not going to be held up in terms of their wait time, things like that. And so it's not necessarily about finding that unique item that nobody's heard of before, but it's really, what is that authentic connection that we can create from the brand to a product category, keep it very simple and straightforward, but execute it at the highest levels. And I think that we look at different QSR chains, some of the top performing in the world focus on singular product categories. We can point to many of that are focused on boneless chicken, as an example, fried boneless chicken. Others that have focused simply on burgers, and have very simple, reduced menus, but they are excelling in these ways of operational excellence. And so I think that it's just important. We see it time and time again in convenience operators, where there will be a plethora of categories: fried chicken, pizza, burgers, sandwiches, salads, breakfast sandwiches. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. And that can work in some instances, but really finding a critical point of, where are we going to plant our flag? What are we going to be known for? And how are we going to excel better than anybody else? That's where you can really achieve big wins.
And I think, well, for me, if you can do a taco well, like, you're on my list. I am like gonna hunt that place down and I'm gonna go to it. And I think another thing that you taught me over the years, just on when we've talked about different vendors or retailers on our show, is the consistency too. Like, you want to be, assuming you have more than one site, you want to be able to go to this one over here in this side of town, this one maybe on another state, that it still tastes the same and you still have the same feel. The people will obviously be different. They might welcome you a little differently, a little different accent or something, but you want to feel and know that you're going to get that same standard product, whether it is fried chicken or pizza or tacos. You want to drive into this other location and say, I'm here for the fried chicken, and you find out they don't have it, but they're the same exact brand. That's confusing, right?
Absolutely. And, that really kind of dovetails right into thinking around store formats and variability of size and the network of different stores. And it's very often that, there will be snowflakes out there. Every store is a little bit different, and some might be quite large, some might be quite small. And there's schools of thought that might say, okay, on the larger stores, we'll have the fried chicken program. In the smaller stores, we won't, or whatever that category of food is. And to your point, Carolyn, that can lead to frustration on the customer side. But again, looking at the QSR segment, we can see the modular kitchen designs and modular food formats that have been quite evolved over the last 20 to 30 years, where different restaurant chains have opened up airport locations, opened up mall kiosks, opened up all college campuses, and then they'll also have their full flagship store that has 120 seats and is propelling these experiences. You can, through modular kitchen development and modular kitchen strategies, and especially with the technology of today, where you can have highly versatile pieces of equipment that are hoodless at times. They might be countertop units. You can really create special experiences in small format locations, and people will sometimes think how small can you go? And I mean, just look at some of the examples out there of cafes and QSRs, and they will fit into a hole in a wall. And so it's just planning accordingly and developing that strategy on the onset is something that can create a much more of a uniformed customer experience, and lead to that level of relationship that, this brand is known for food. And I know if I see this brand, I'm going to get good food.
Harry, we have these online share groups, and you presented to one of our online share groups last week with retailers from around the world on it. And you got a lot of follow-up and interest in the presentation. And I thought it was really interesting because you were talking about the menu, the science behind creating a menu, and this the circumstances when in the terms of the customer journey, where the customer has around 3 seconds to make their mind up when they're looking at a menu. And my feeling was, when I first heard about some of the research you've been doing on this, and that's why I wanted you to present to our round table last week on the topic, was that the convenience sector was somewhat behind quick service restaurants in terms of the science behind menu design. And I think it's perhaps low-hanging fruit that the convenience industry isn't always picking.
Yeah, I mean, so menu communications is critically important to any operation. How are we going to explain to our customers what we're offering here? What are the descriptions or details that are important for them to know, and do that in a highly intuitive way? It's many will think about menu design as a purely design initiative, and how do we make this look beautiful? And that's great and good, and that's, I would consider, a table stake. A menu design should look good, but behind that needs to be a very integrated and thoughtful strategy that's driven around business metrics and driven around different customer segments and order occasions. And so when I kind of talk about this a bit, I'll just be very top line here. You have different customers walking into your stores every day. You have customers that are coming in for the first time. You have customers that have been coming in for many, many years. And you have customers coming in that are hungry for more. They are big brand lovers, and they want to know more about what you do and how you do it. And, how do you create communications that start to speak to each of these different demographics? It can be quite challenging. But starting to break down some of the strategies and science that's used throughout the QSR and fast casual industry, leveraging eye tracking technologies, and thinking through different types of mix, sales mix objectives. What is that golden order? What do we want people to buy? Is it a sandwich, a side, a beverage, and a dessert? Is it, what is that pathway that we want to lead customers towards? And now, how do we create, through visual stimulus, That could be imagery, that could be highlights of colors, that could be threads of pathways throughout a menu communication that start to drive intuitive behaviors that lead customers in that direction really quickly. It's really important to note that, in today's day and age, customers have, and we all have, very short attention spans. I mean, the TikTok nation that's around us has propelled, 3-second video clips that tell us everything, that we need to know, and we're off to the next, immediately. And so taking that into consideration, how can we communicate this really, really fast to customers, really, really easily? And something that I really like to think about is that it's not about reading. It's not about cognitive thought. It's not about, let me think about this and let me read this statement. It has to be coming from the gut. It has to be something that you look in, you feel it, you start to say, okay, I want that with this, and I need this to drink. And it's something that becomes very primal from your stomach, not from your brain. And when you can create that type of key and unlock within the menu communication experience, you have a faster queuing. Order times are much quicker. You have a higher average check because more customers are buying the add-ons or the impulse. And at the end of the day, you have happier customers because they're leaving very satisfied with exactly what they want, and it tastes great.
That's fascinating. I think you're in my brain because I know I can't. I very rarely go through like a drive-through. I like to go in because I like to think about what I want. But then when I go through this drive-through, like because whatever reason, and there's this board with so many choices on it, I end up just blurting out the first thing that I think of, and I'm never happy. So it's just that I like what you said about flowing with the eye. And now I'm going to, like, every time I go in somewhere, I'm going to think about this because I'll be like, that menu, you don't need 750 items on there. I don't want that much choice. Just give me one. It's like Cheesecake Factory. They're probably not listening to us right now, so I don't mind naming them directly. They have a 30-page menu. Sorry, I'm going off on a rant on that. But this is something that, like, fast is in the name. So that's why we want to stick with it. So thank you for kind of explaining that through. And I'm sure you just had a bunch of people in the audience going, wow. Okay. Anyway, so speaking of those queues, you want to keep them moving. You want to be fast. You want to get the food to them fast. You want to get the order done fast. And I think one of the things you mentioned was when there's too many choices or there's too much going on, or just it confuses the staff, it confuses the people. But when we talk about people, convenience or even QSR, how do we do better than QSRs? How do we make it the extremely easy, convenient place to order food?
Well, I mean, when we talk about people, I immediately start to think about culture. And, what's interesting is that throughout our research in the convenience store segment, one of the biggest kind of, levers is that so many of the culture that's been developed within the staff members and the team members is that they build one-to-one connections with customers, and they often will know customers by name, and they create this level of hospitality that is really quite special and unique. And honestly, I think that QSRs can learn a lot about the culture development in the convenience store segment, and just in terms of that one-to-one connection that is so common in convenience stores. But what is on the other side is food service culture, and thinking around food safety, and thinking around cleanliness, and thinking around operational elements that in terms of training and execution, where it's very often that is a next phase for convenience operators, that it's something where the convenience stores, they're moving into food, they're leaning in, they might hire, someone from the food service background, and, how do we start to build this culture? And I think that there's a lot of learnings from the QSR industry that can be applied to convenience in terms of that food lifestyle. And but bringing those together, it becomes something really super. And, we can look at concepts, that are real anomalies and outliers within the segment, Chick-fil-A being one of them, In-N-Out Burger being another, that are really known for both of those coming together. It's that, credibility and excellence in food service operations alongside just very high levels of hospitality, knowing customers' names, asking how your child's sports game was the day before, having that kind of detail ready to go. That combination is something that is quite unique. And I think that as C-stores become more and more engaged with food service culture, that's going to be the inherent next step.
Well, I was just gonna ask you a question actually, Carolyn, which is why do people in our industry always look forward to July?
Why?
Well, because of course they're summer holidays, but also because it kicks off the best foodvenience store in the world competition each year, doesn't it?
That is true. Dan, you're absolutely right. So we are in Foodvenience competition season right now, being we're in July. And for the third year in a row, we're going to be crowning the best Foodvenience store in the world. So go ahead and go to globalconvenience.com to find out what it takes to enter, because if you are hearing your brand and anything Harry's saying today, then we want to hear from you. If you're brand new to foodvenience, food service, or if you've been doing it for a long time, no matter where you are in the world, we want to see your entry. Those entries are due September 8th, and we're looking for photos, videos, everything you can tell us about your store, because we have a great panel of judges, including Harry, who's going to be looking into that to find out who is indeed the best. We're going to put that out to the general public for voting in October, and then we will announce the winner on November 12th. We're also going to announce that online and at the Retail Marketers Convenience Leaders Convention in Hamburg, Germany. Don't worry, you don't have to go. We'll put that on LinkedIn as well. But we hope to have dozens upon dozens upon dozens of entries this year. Right, Dan?
Absolutely right. And just thinking about this is obviously the third year, Karen, as you rightly point out. Just thinking about who's gone, the legends who've gone before. Apple Green won in the first year, and then in Ireland, of course, everyone needs to go to Ireland if you haven't been to Ireland to look at the some of the best foodvenience in the world. And then Rutter's in Pennsylvania won with their unique, exciting, innovative proposition in 2025. So who knows where the winner will be in 2026, but I guess we're going to find out.
Harry, what's some guidance you would give someone entering this year's competition?
Step one is place your entry. Looking at the years past, the bar keeps rising and it's getting better and better. And there's just so many different operators out there that I would love to see participate and be included in this. It's always just, there's so much great learning, great sharing opportunities. And I know that there is just one winner at the end of the day, but I think that everyone that participates just gets sightlines into seeing what's happening, what's special all around the world, which is just hugely exciting, and excited that we're about to enter July.
That's a perfect answer. I think we put all of the entries up online so everybody can see all around the world. So not only are you seeing who won, like you said, but you can see what's happening in other places, get some ideas. It's taking a ginormous store tour just globally from your computer or phone. So thank you for expounding on that, Harry, and thank you for joining us. I've learned a lot from you, and I think I know our listeners will have done so too. Don't you think, Dan?
Oh, 100%. Really, really interesting conversation today.
It's always a ton of fun. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to put you back in the host seat one of these days very soon, Harry, so you don't have to do all the hard thinking, but we really appreciate it today, for sure, for teaching us things. And Dan, as always, great to be with you, and thank you all for listening to The Future of Convenience. Thank you for listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, produced by Dan Munford, Jenna Ferguson, and Lorraine Evans. It is produced and edited and mixed by Carolyn Schnare, and music is provided by Jukebox Music. Learn more at globalconvenience.com.